Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi Hazur.
Wa alaikum salam.
My name is Aziz Ahmed Hafiz. I am a final year medical student at the University of London.
That's right.
And my
Which college?
University College London.
University College London. That's
Very
right.
close to school.
That's right. Yeah.
Hazur, my first question, has our hospitals developed in Africa and the third world? Does Hazur see the Jamaat as a leading healthcare provider in the third world?
Yes, they realize it, and the governments appreciate it very much. But it's not entirely because of there being some hospitals available, but because of the special blessing of Allah, that the incidence of cure is definitely and visibly higher in our hospitals than in the rest of the hospitals and other institutions. That's one reason why they highly appreciate the Ahmadiyya services in the health department. Also, the attitude of the doctors is much more kind and sympathetic and personal than other such hospitals and institutions, where many a time very highly educated foreigners are employed, Americans, Canadians, etc., etc. But still they see the difference between their attitudes. And then Ahmadi doctors are available day and night, whatever happens. Everybody can knock at their door and then they immediately provide the services. Much more than everything else is the prayer, because the doctors keep informing me that at many times when they were caught in a mess and they thought that the patient was just going out of hand, slipping out of hand, when they thought of praying, and amazingly the patient started recovering. So all these factors together create a very good impression of Ahmadi hospitals everywhere in Africa. Thank you.
So I have one more question,
Yes,
if you
please.
permit. I hope I can explain this. So here in the United Kingdom, within the health service of the United Kingdom, there seems to be a policy of harm minimization, in that, for example, you have people that are drug addicts on the street who are injecting with needles. So they seem to, a way of dealing with them is, let's provide them free needles. At least they are clean needles. So money is being spent on this, and workers within the sex industry, etc., contraception is then provided for them. I mean, I would like Azur's views.
Do you know who does it?
This is within the health service.
Who decides these matters?
The Ministry
The
of
drug
Health.
addiction has risen very high. So perhaps those who do it, they themselves are drug addicts. And as far as my investigation goes, it has spread far and wide among doctors as well. I recently read an article on doctors being drug addicts in America, and the figure was very alarming. A very large number of doctors in that article were mentioned as drug addicts themselves. So this is a moral problem much more than the health problem. And the moral problem is the result of the social values which they promote or suppress. So the whole, everything is wrong about the social system everywhere. The economic system, the social system, pleasure chasing, irresponsibility, lack of answerability, and lack of truth in every department, in every sphere of life. Only among scientists who are dedicated to their work and do not find time to spend elsewhere. Day and night they're absorbed and drawn into the work. So leaving them aside, unfortunately most of the social service doctors with free health and partially free health, etc., etc., this is a problem which is being noted here as well. So the American article which I mentioned, is very disturbing in fact. Thank you. Wa alaikum salam.
Hazur, I've got two questions, if I may. The first one is, Hazur, you mentioned time and again about homeopathic medicine being much more advantageous than Western medicine, and Western medicine having so many pitfalls associated with it.
Homeopathic medicine is Western medicine. It was invented here by Hahnemann, who was very much a Western person, and it's very popular and getting more and more popular in the West. So conventional medicine and homeopathy, this should be the comparison.
All right.
Yes.
Do you think that in an ideal hospital, if you were to design a hospital, would you have both of those practices of medicine working hand in hand, or would homeopathy completely replace homeopathic medicine? Like insulin, for instance, for diabetics, is a Western practice of medicine.
See, I would like the institutions to be separate and let the patients decide where to go. But as far as the modern homeopathic hospitals are concerned, or clinics, I should very much like to employ the modern devices of tests, etc., and other electronic devices which work as a mechanical means of life-saving. Otherwise, the treatment should be entirely homeopathic. If a patient insists that he should have access to allopathic treatment in a homeopathic hospital, I should advise such hospitals to let him leave the hospital and be shifted to an allopathic hospital. But mixing of the two is not advisable at all. In a way, this will work as a drug to the homeopath as well, because whenever he feels easier and more comfortable to suppress the signs, symptoms of a patient, he may quietly shift to allopathic usage. So this is very wrong, and this is being practiced in Pakistan, unfortunately, not only at the level of homeopathy, but also at the level of tib. They keep modern drugs which are being used to suppress diseases. Almost every Hakim has access to these things, and the initial effect is that people are very pleased. They return home and saying, no, that is the Hakim, and spread the damage like a virus to the other part of the society until they become incurable. Because these atibba are not, they use the same drugs which allopathic doctors here or in America use, but not with the same training in cautiousness. I mean, they're not being cautious about how to use them. So this is the problem which is in the third world and is spreading very widely. So I don't want to promote this practice. This is a very immoral practice, and homeopath doctors and clinics should keep away from such indulgences.
One more question, if I may. The only way, as far as I can see, of conventional medicine accepting any forms of alternate medicine, I understand that there are all these systems in place, like what you call the drug mafia, of preventing these things of coming in. But given that there is that system, the only thing that Western conventional medics will understand is proven clinical research. So if there would be a way of organising direct comparisons in, for instance, the treatment of asthma between 50 people treated with homeopathic medicine and 50 people treated with the homeopathic equivalent for that specific disease, then I think that the conventional English-American medics would have to take more notice.
Even without it, British public is shifting very rapidly to homeopathy. Even when they go to their regular doctors, they prefer such doctors as practice homeopathy as well. And this is my information gleaned from all over England, that such doctors are getting much more popular who know homeopathy, and their patients insist that on National Health Service they should receive the benefits through homeopathy, not through other conventional means. So why should we make an effort to convince these people when the experience and the practical evidence is converting them to homeopathy at a large number? So this again will not be, you will not be assisted by allopathic hospitals as well. I mean, allopathic hospitals either, because it would be against their own science. And if they prove it, then they undo themselves. If they prove the efficacy, of homeopathy, then they undo themselves. So the better keep away. Moreover, all the money spent on modern researches, etc., is in itself a very strong reason for them to continue with that. The modern research is all right, but the research they carry out does not bear any fruit in the real sense of the word, in many departments. In some departments it does. So wherever this research is possible, this research bears fruit, we must support it. But if you prove the system to be wrong and much less efficacious than homeopathy, then the funding agencies will hold their hand and will not fund the research programs. They may shift to homeopathy and homeopathic research. So these are the factors which I think are working as deterrent for allopathic decision makers.
Hazur, I'm an orthopedic surgeon. And
yes.
As part of my job, I have to operate on several kinds of patients. Most of them are likely to be HIV positive. During surgery, many times I can prick myself with a needle, and there's a lot of exposure to AIDS patients. And it is not practical to test everybody whether they were AIDS positive. What should I be thinking or doing in my situation?
It's happening everywhere. In America, a very large number of MD doctors report to me such accidents, and I have always been advising them to have a dose of Silesia to begin with, very high. Silesia CM is one of the most effective medicine, both as preventive and curative. And I have myself witnessed the cure in cases of AIDS, patients suffering from AIDS, not just HIV positive, but suffering from actually AIDS disease, which had completely rotted the whole body. Yet they recovered. But the incidence is not very high like it's in the case of common colds and things. The incident, if to my assessment, at one time to begin with, I thought 70% of the cases responded positively. But when I expanded the experiments to other cases, then I realized that the incidence is not that high. But still, I think 30% of patients do benefit from homeopathy, whereas if they had been put at the mercy of allopathic treatment, first of all, they do not claim any cures themselves either. Secondly, they fail in curing such patients and giving them relief. The maximum breakthrough which has been so far done is in America, where the magazines and news media says they have broken through, the patients have recovered and so on and so forth with some new drugs. And when I investigated and read all about it myself, I was amazed at this big fraud, because the experts themselves admit that the maximum benefit they could draw was for 2 years. After that, nothing could be done. But when I talk of homeopathy, then I know such patients who are still alive and are very much in good shape. Such pregnant mothers who were stricken by AIDS, who gave birth to children, they have completely recovered from the effect of AIDS themselves. While they were admitted here to the allopathic clinics, and they were examining the patient and writing reports, I've got the full record. And the mother completely recovered, and out of the children, one could not be saved, and the other is still alive and kicking. So you better investigate this yourself. To begin with, I always give Silicea CM to be repeated according to the symptoms or the demand of the patient, which differs from patient to patient. Then if it ceases to work, or to enhance its influence once again, I interdose it with sulfur CM. And most often the patient remains within these two drugs not medicines, and recovers, mashallah, with the grace of Allah. So you better use it on yourself as well. Because in the case of MD doctors, they were all saved with the grace of Allah, without exception. That is not only because of the medicine, but because of special blessings of Allah. Please.
I'm dental surgeon in general practice. My question is...
From where?
From Reading Jamaat.
Right.
My question is, most dental mouthwashes contain alcohol. If clinically necessary, should we be using them?
Using what? Alcohol for what?
Well, basically, the base is alcohol with obviously ingredients such as chlorhexidine.
Alcohol is forbidden for its certain negative effects. But as far as the curative effects of alcohol are concerned, that's not forbidden. The orthodox mullahs consider it to be haram in every case, while they know themselves that to save life you can even eat the flesh of swine. So alcohol is less haram than the flesh of swine. Yet, as a life-saving device or means, one is many a time compelled to eat pork or whatever it is, if there is a real danger to life. So alcohol or anything else, if it is life-saving,
Right.
it's not haram.
See, because most situations where we would prescribe mouthwashes are not actually life-threatening situations.
But where it's not essential as lifesaver,
Mm-hmm.
it should be considered haram. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum, Hazur.
Wa alaikum salam.
Syed Mansoor Ahmed. I'm a psychology student at Greenwich University. I'm in my first year. Hazur, as I'm in my first year, I've only actually touched upon Carl Jung.
Do you practice psychiatry?
No.
Thank God. Yes,
No,
please.
Well, I've just touched upon Carl Jung. I'm not sure if you know of him or not. He was a student of Freud's. Then he broke away from Freud because he didn't agree with Freud's interpretation of libido.
You must be a sensible person.
Right. I find him extremely interesting, and I was extremely interested in his concept of the unconsciousness, and especially his concept of the collective unconsciousness, in the way that my collective unconsciousness consists of all my ancestors' knowledge, and it all is passed down onto me.
Correct.
Now I'd like to know
Even the animals' knowledge and experience is passed on to you, and your brain is a storehouse of memory of the past, even when you were not a human in this world. well, maybe, I don't say you were ape, of course. What I mean to say is that any form of animal life left its mark on the brain, developing brain. And that brain went on increasing and collecting all the memories of the past, which were never wasted. So this is my personal theory as well,
Right.
which I have found true in application as well. So if he speaks of that, I fully agree with him.
Right. My second
But
question.
he is only talking of perhaps human experience and human ancestors.
Yes. Yes.
I go much beyond that.
Right.
I say all the animal experience has been preserved in your system without your realizing it. And that has gone, for instance, into immunology. All the threats to life of animals created a reaction after a long experience. That reaction is stored in your immunological system. So that is why whenever it is needed to be recalled, you send a homeopathic signal and it takes time for starting producing that particular antibody in the human factory,
Right.
which is in the perhaps bone marrows. But it recalls that something from a very remote past and begins to develop your antibody in accordance with the need of the time.
My second question is sort of slightly ties in with this one. Apparently, in everyday existence, we use a very small percentage of our brain, the potentialities of our brain. Some people in religions have prescribed disciplines, for example, ritual magic or George Gurdjieff's fourth way, which help to increase this percentage and therefore expand our consciousness. From my limited understanding of Islam, I don't see any disciplines like this in Islam. And if there aren't any, why aren't there any?
What last part? The last part?
Disciplines, he doesn't see any disciplines like that in Islam which extend the use of the brain, the percentage use of the brain.
Your question is not clear to me, and it's not clear to them either.
Right, I'll just repeat it again.
Huh?
In everyday existence, we use a very small percentage of our brain.
That much is understood, but what
Okay.
was the end part?
Right. Well, some people prescribe disciplines. For example, there's ritual magic, and there's George Gurdjieff's fourth way, where they do stuff like.
You see, this disciplining is essential, but these magic, those people who go for magic in creating discipline, I completely disagree with them. The magic does not produce any discipline in you. The best discipline is created by Islamic teachings. When you study your own self, you critically examine your inner being and have a habit of implying your concentration on yourself with truth. There are two types of introspective studies. One is wishful thinking and trying to imagine things in yourself which do not exist. But some indications may lead you on to those things which are complementary to you in a manner, and you are very happy with such a study. This is spurious. It doesn't mean anything. If you search for defects in yourself with honesty, it is only this which will create discipline. So this magic you are talking about is all hocus pocus. It doesn't create that sense of responsibility at all.
Right. Well, the ritual magic isn't actually, to be honest, concerned too much with magic itself. It's more of disciplines like yoga.
I've
and
seen
stuff like that.
people on television involved in this ritual magic, and I have read their literature. I still believe that it's hocus pocus.
Right.
Thank you.
So how do we go about?
Now, how many questions are you going to ask?
Sorry.
Why don't you discipline yourself?
Right. Okay.
Thank you.
Jazakallah.
Next, please.
Assalamu alaikum, Hazur.
Wa alaikum salam. Come closer, please.
My name is Dr. Mansoor Ahmed.
Yes.
I work in cardiology and care of the elderly medicine
That's
in
right.
Poole and Dorset Hospital. Hazur, quite a few of overseas doctors are worried about racism in UK in medical profession and find it difficult to break in the higher circles just because of color and their ethnic origin. I wonder if you could please throw some light on the ways and means of dealing with this problem.
I don't think that you can approach this problem without tackling with a moral problem. It's not an issue which is directly related with healthcare at all. It is just the moral problem of the people of the West in the present situation of the world. Basically, they have always been racists. Never have they been without the seed of racism, except for individuals which are in every society, which are born noble and retain their nobility. They are different people altogether. What happened during the Cold War years, they suppressed their racism because it didn't help them at all. The same happened in Germany, the same happened in England, etc., etc. But when the Cold War was over, then these people who didn't belong to their nations or their races, they appeared to be offensive aliens to them. This reaction they must have shown if there was no polarization between Russia or the communist world and the Western world. So that was out of compulsion that they were suppressing this racism in them. Now there is no compulsion. So although still there is a large number of people who are not racist or who had not let their racism surface so far, but most of them are moving in that direction, unfortunately. So it's very important for Ahmadis and others who understand the problem to create a model of humanity and attract people all around them with human values. If they do so, then racism will not find an appropriate ground for it to flourish. On a soil where divine qualities are working, where God is the model for humans and they follow His attributes universally, racism cannot flourish on this soil. That is the only answer. The rest is all meaningless. So that is why I have been telling Ahmadis to produce around them a field of godly values. People will most certainly attracted by that field. And if we can win the war against time, then we still may be able to change the values here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wa alaikum salam. Yes, you are from?
I'm from West Yorkshire. I'm working there as a GP. My name is Mahmood Ahmad Khan.
Yes.
I just wanted to ask Huzur, what's the Islamic...
And how's your wife?
She's fine, Jazakallah.
Fine?
Jazakallah.
And your little baby?
She's all right, Jazakallah.
Okay.
Alhamdulillah. I just wanted
Saida has returned from?
No, she's still there.
Not yet.
Yes, unfortunately, it's his son, so she's still with them.
Okay.
Just wanted to ask, what's the Islamic view about the modern medical techniques that are being developed every day? Like recently, a human ear was grown on a mouse for later transplantation to a human being. And also about in vitro fertilization, which has been going on for quite a long time, in which the infertile husband and wife cells are used, reproductive cells, to produce an embryo, which is later transferred to the natural mother.
See, the guiding principle in all such matters is this, that whatever modern techniques or progress of science helps the creation of God to retain itself, it's all permissible, not only permissible, it is promoted by the Holy Quran. Wherever the modern techniques work against the creation of God, where you want to interfere and change it, it's all a satanic trend which, according to the Quran, is going to kick back very strongly upon the people who do it. So with this principle you can measure everything, and you can assess everything's value.
Yeah.
If somebody has lost an ear and an ear is planted over him without any damage to other humans, it's well and good, why not? But if you change the shape of the ear from that of a human ear to that of a rabbit, then certainly it's against the nature of God and should be forbidden. Similarly, those women who sell their reproductive cells and those men who do that, they work against the nature created by God.
Yeah.
Because they are making a short circuit of reproduction which lacks the values of marriage, and society is built by marriages and homes. Whatever is destructive to that is forbidden. And where you sell your parts to somebody else, it may create a completely different effect on the embryo and on the children of such embryos.
Jazakallah.
Assalamu alaikum, Azur. My name is Fateh Ahmed.
Yes.
And I'm a fourth year medical student at Imperial College School of Medicine. I've
For
got
the last 2 years, you have been in fourth year?
No, Azur, I'm doing an intercalated BSc. I'm doing an intercalated BSc for 1 year as well.
Right.
I've got two very short questions. First one is that non-Ahmadi medical student friends of mine refrain from dissection of human bodies because they relate to hadith that says that laying a finger on a dead body is like...
What?
They relate a hadith that says that laying a finger on a dead body is like laying 1,000 tons of weight on a live human.
There's no hadith. There's no such hadith at all.
Right. So we are allowed to dissect human bodies.
It's all nonsense. There's no such hadith.
My second short question is that what are your views on plastic surgery, specifically cosmetic surgery, regarding from the point of view of both the surgeon and the patient?
I have already mentioned my opinion. If plastic surgery is helpful for retaining the true features of a person whose features have become distorted because of injury or fall, traumatism, etc., then it's an excellent thing. If plastic surgery is helpful in growing your hair on the head, while previously you had those hair and by some disease they are lost, follicles are damaged, etc., plastic surgery is not forbidden at all. But if the plastic surgeon grows hair on your belly or on your leg, this is against nature. So it all depends on how you employ your knowledge of the modern times. According to my answer given previously, anything which is helpful in retaining the nature created by God is very essential and promoted by the Quran very clearly. Anything which works against it is wrong. For instance, if you work in genetic engineering and you create such new forms of wheat, for instance, in the seeds, which because of the genetic changes brought about in them, grow better, heavier and healthier wheat. I personally think there is nothing wrong with it. But if you create bacteria artificially, which prey upon the bacteria which ultimately damage wheat. Now, these artificially prepared bacteria are not created by nature. And when you release them in the open, they may do immense damage to the future generation of the bacteria which they give birth to, and the future generation of crops from which they remove the harmful bacteria. Our knowledge of the harmful bacteria is still very limited. They may be really essential for guarding some values and protecting a crop from even more harmful bacteria. So the knowledge of man is really very limited in this area. And already they have started discovering that the animals which they thought were harmful and they were forcibly removed, they let loose the rapid production of certain other harmful animals which they were preying upon. Like it happened in long ago, before this subject of, plastics, before this subject of immunology in disease, in fields, in crops, was taken up by the scientists as a branch of science. Whether they produce genetic changes or whatever else measure they adopted, this has become a branch of science to protect the crops in the field from various harmful effects. Partially they employ genetics in this. But this subject has been a part of scientific attention even before the invention of genetic changes. In Australia, they forcibly killed a sort of rabbit which they thought created a lot of damage to the crops. So they completely annihilated that rabbit. The result was, if I remember correctly, some other animals started to flourish and spread widely throughout Australia, against whom they had no answer. So they had to reintroduce the previous animal, whether it was rabbit or whatever else it was. The animal which was removed had to be reintroduced to fight this new menace. So human knowledge is as yet very limited. Experimentation with the creation of Allah, according to the Holy Quran, may take a wrong turning and may destroy the very masters who produce these animals. See?
So if
I have written on this subject with reference to modern technology, etc., in the book which I have been talking about is now about to be published, I hope. If you're interested in this, I have taken it up with reference to the Holy Quran, with reference to the scientific evidence, etc.
Can I make a very short comment regarding doctors and in the Jahan scheme? The way the medical system in this country works, it's very difficult for a doctor, once he's entered the system, to leave it for, say, 3 years or 4 years or 5 years to go to Africa and work. Because of the medical expertise and the teaching available in this country to graduates from this country or people studying in this country, I think that what Dr. Saeed Khan Sahab Marhum used to do was that after reaching the heights of his profession, he used to get sponsorship from drug companies or other companies and go to Africa for short periods of time. So once people studying in this country reach the heights of their, say, maxillofacial surgery, craniofacial surgery, whichever part of medicine they're in, and they excel in it, then at that time they can go and provide their assistance to the Jamaat or to our hospitals in Africa. And I'm just wondering if Azur has an approval on this.
You have made a statement, not a question.
Does Azur approve of this statement?
I think you are partially right. Some,
Jazakallah.
but I'm looking at consulting the watch over there. I have also to leave for another meeting which is being held in the guest house, where a very prominent architect is visiting from Canada concerning the mosque which is to be built in Vancouver. No. Yes, Vancouver. So they are waiting for me. I've had one session with them, but they expect me again. So if we can bring this session to a close within next a few minutes, 10 minutes or so, then I think I'll appreciate that.
Jazakallah, Hazur.
Assalamu alaikum. Hazur, my name is Dr. Tahir Ahmed. I'm working as a registrar in general medicine at Halifax.
Halifax.
My question is actually related to one of the two questions which have already been asked.
Right.
But maybe that what are your views about this human cloning?
I have expressed my views on cloning so many times, and also with reference to the question, you should have understood that if I condemn transplantation of embryonic cells from one mother to an unrelated person, it is harmful.
Yeah.
But if you enter cloning, then the change in reproduction will be so wide and so onerous with bad possibilities, harmful possibilities, that I shudder when I imagine the result of such clonings. You see, with cloning you can create an army of Muhammad Ali Clays without the least affection between them, because the affection and love and hatred and aversion are born because of influences of the family, father and mother, and they're taking care or lacking care, etc., etc. They go towards making a man's personality. Now, such cloned Muhammad Alis could be completely callous. They could be completely without passion for others, sympathy for others, and they may become masters of their own masters after a while and begin to destroy the whole human race. They will, of course, learn cloning themselves as well, won't they? When they grow, they become doctors in a more advanced stage. They would know how to clone themselves. So that cloning would become a danger for the whole world, because they will have the support of a very rich country, and they can do damage not only to America but to the whole society in the world. Cloning is absolutely out of question to be considered as a valid answer to any problem. It's only problematic. It's no answer to any problem at all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Was it your time that you gave permission to him?
He did, yes.
That's right, good. Huh?
He's from Manchester.
Yes, that's right.
I'm Dr. Jalil Mia from Manchester
Yes,
University.
I know the family. Huh?
I have a question on the 3 stages of spiritual development in man. And that could this be related to the control of the biological brain by the intelligent brain? As a neuroscientist, we recognize 2 parts of the brain. One is the biological brain that's driven by our desires, and one is the intelligent part, which develops as we grow old.
But that is not brain at all. It is called mind.
Well, it's part of the brain. It's the cortex,
No.
essentially.
There I beg to differ with you,
Right.
because brain is only the name of the material
Yeah.
grey cell mass,
Yes.
which is shared by even goats. You eat the brain of goats and things, but you never eat the mind of goats. So a differentiation has to be made between the brain and the mind. And I have spoken on this subject repeatedly. Dr. Eccles, for instance, one of the chief surgeons of brain surgeon who worked on epilepsy. He quotes in one of his books 34 cases where he had removed the physical mass of the brain altogether, which was responsible for some functioning. But he bears witness that mind took over, which is not a material entity at all. And those functions were still performed. Recently, I had a case of an Ahmadi who suffered from extensive brain damage, where the brain was, portions of brain were removed altogether. They were worried, and I told them, don't be worried. You wait and see. Allah will make him start working as a full normal person, as if the whole brain was there. And they have started reporting that this is exactly what's happening. So that's why I differed with you, with due respects. The brain is just a material name for the grey cell mass.
Yes.
Mind is something we cannot locate. To my knowledge, mind is the operator of the computer that we call brain. Brain is the computer. It cannot operate itself. And there has to be someone who operates the computer of the brain. And that something is spirit or soul or mind, whatever you call it.
In terms of the mind, I think people generally believe that the workings of the mind are a function of the workings of the brain matter.
But if you call it a function, then the brain should devise the function and should operate itself. You see, computers do not operate themselves.
No.
At best, the brain is a computer. Without consciousness added to that computer, how to operate itself, the system cannot work. On this, you have to go deeper into this matter, and with reference to biological evolution, you are left with no choice but to agree with the fact that brain does not operate itself. The same type of brain, the same mass of brain can be found in so many people.
Yes.
And the results are different. Right?
Yeah.
Thank you. And I think with that I take leave of you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.